Hey, Miguel Dorati back here with the Cage Rage podcast, and we are doing our Wage Rage segments. Boxing on April 13th sees the women on Showtime. This is big time stuff in my book, live from Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. I'm joined by our boxing analyst, Anthony Scott Pyatt, to talk a little bit more about Claressa Shields versus Christina Hammer, middleweight unification fight for the ladies. I'm excited, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We have just got a nice lineup of boxing this weekend, as I mentioned on the ESPN card. Check it out, ESPN, Showtime, Fox Sports 1. Check out all the Wage Rages for this weekend. And heck, while you're at it, check out some of the boxing history Miguel and I have done. There's some timeless videos at Cage Rage. But here we are with Wage Rage, and I'm happy to be back.
And I'm glad for the little plug there. There is a lot of stuff in the back there, but what we're focused on right now is this weekend, Boardwalk Hall, Atlantic City, the ladies front and center. Now, Claressa Shields, two-time Olympian, gold medalist 2 times. She is 8-0 as a pro. She's already got 3 of the world titles in the middleweight division, so obviously she's been moving fast. Already comes at 24 years old with a real high skill level. Basically grew up in boxing and stuff. So she's the 2.0, the new version, and hoping to be the face of women's boxing. Now, when you're going to make a jump like that, you really need a nemesis. And they went to Germany to find Christina Hammer, and Christina Hammer is playing the part very well here of an actual nemesis. 24-0, so she's very skilled, very good resume. A world champion in her own right. The only world title in this weight class that Shields doesn't have, Hammer has. So that's, the title unification stuff. How do you see this one? Hammer with her experience or Shields with her, upward trajectory?
That's an interesting question. I wanted to throw a dog watch at Christina Hammer at 24-0. She does look really good in a lot of the film. German professional. She's won multiple world champions in 2 different weight classes now. WBO middleweight title since October of 2010. Youngest female to win that WBO title. So there's some first for her. And I really wanted to like her. When you start looking at her competition and a little bit of her amateur experience, it doesn't quite add up to what Claressa has. You mentioned Christina's experience versus Claressa, but let's not forget those 2 gold medals for Claressa. And yeah, at 8-0, only 2 knockouts, but she's winning these fights easily. When you look at Christina Hammer, she got knocked out by Anne-Sophie Mathis. Now, how she undefeated and got knocked out? Well, Mathis did sort of hold her head and hit her a couple of times, as she probably would have went down if Mathis didn't hold her head. And it was one of those sort of after she had gone down type punches that you can get disqualified for. And it was a little questionable. I don't know that all judges would have seen it the same way. So did Christina win that fight? I think she got knocked out personally. But they called it a disqualification. She won the belts on that fight, actually. Not a pretty way to do it. After looking at some of her film and some of her past opponents in her record, I just couldn't give her at the 325. I couldn't tell you to put money on her. I think Shields win this one by decision quite easily.
And that's very interesting. Hammer also has experience against an American named Kaylee Reese. I'm familiar with Kaylee. I know her personally. I know she's very hardworking and, has provided Hammer with all she could handle. In fact, had also dropped her at one point. But what's notable there is that Hammer's always received the home cooking, and you hinted at some shenanigans where she won the belt in a fight that maybe some people consider a knockout. Well, she's been always received the home cooking, and here she's coming into the Lions Den to face Claressa Shields, and it's fine to go to the Lions Den. Here you're going to the Lions Den, and there's a freaking lion in there. You know what I mean? It's like it's not just like the Lion's Den. It's like the lion is there too, because Claressa is not going to have a lot of mercy for Christina Hammer in this one. In my book, I think that she definitely is a girl who at 24 years old with 2 Olympic gold medals has already shown superior focus, and she is focused on bigger things and being, a celebrity and a crossover star. She'd like to be, bigger than boxing. And, she's definitely at 24 years old, is in terms of the skill package she brings in boxing, is capable. And I think she's looking at Hammer as someone who's just standing in her way. So I think it's bad news for Christina in her debut here in Boardwalk Hall. Now, heading into the support fights, it's a full night of fights. There's a few heavyweight fights and things. We selected 2 of the fights on the undercard here to look at as well. One of them will be a heavyweight fight. We'll get to that one in a second. We'll open up with the 8 rounds in the super bantamweight division. Jesse Angel Hernandez is a 185 favorite, minus 185 as he takes on Marcus Bates. Bates coming back at plus 145. How do you see this one? This is one that you want to look at.
I think this is going to be a really good fight. I'm really looking forward to this fight. I think it's a pick'em fight with Bates at a plus 145. You look at Bates, he's got really fast hands. He has 1 loss, and it was to Rydell Salim, and who did outbox him. He just outboxed him. He really did. He flurried and took the fight to Marcus Bates. So he's 8-1. 7 knockouts, though, and this is something to keep in mind when you talk about a possible dog watch pick. 7 of his 8 victories are knockouts. Jesse Angel Hernandez, 12-2. He's lost to Ray Jimenez, and he lost. And again, we've talked about this on some other cards that we're picking this weekend. His last fight was to Thomas Patrick Ward, and he lost that fight. So here you have a guy coming back from a loss. Now, does that make him determined and he's definitely going to win? Well, a lot of times it does, but a lot of times they take a tune-up fight or they fight sort of a beanbag, And this Marcus Bates, I think he's a live wire. I kind of like this plus 145. My actual prediction, Hernandez by decision, but dog watch Bates at plus 150 or plus 200, especially if you can get 200 on Bates. Definitely take a plus 200 on him. I think this is a nice fight to watch. I think these styles match up pretty well. Bates with his fast hands. Hernandez a little bit taller, I believe, a little more powerful perhaps. But I don't know that his output is enough to stay on top of it. And if he lets Marcus into the game, Marcus has got sort of a puncher's chance. And
that one sees Bates at 8-1-1 heading into the fight. Hernandez at 12-2. So both of them have already experienced a little bit of a blemish onto their careers. It behooves them to avoid another one, So interesting fight in the super bantamweight division. Now, you've also pinpointed one of the heavyweight fights. We've got 10 rounds of action scheduled for us between undefeated Jermaine Franklin coming in at 17-0, and Rydell Booker 25-1. This one, Franklin fighting out of the Michigan area, so obviously one of the Claressa Shields coattails, bringing some fighters down from the Michigan area. Nothing wrong with that. He has fought largely in the Michigan area and in the north east and stuff. Not that Boardwalk Hall is that much of a trip for him, but the jump in competition to Rydell Books might very well be Rydell Booker out of Detroit as well. A little bit of like a local grudge match being done in neutral territory there. Neither one of them have any major names on their resume. Booker just a little bit more experienced, a little bit further along on the curve. He's 33 years old. You went 12 rounds with James Toney back in the day. He's mounting a comeback here. He's been 3-0 in his 2018 comeback after 14 years of a layoff. So Rydell Booker trying to write a comeback story, and Jermaine Franklin trying to take a step up into the next level of visibility. How do you see this one?
You're right. His only loss is to James Toney, who was 67-4 at the time. But Rydell Booker has no wins over an undefeated opponent. He also has some wins that aren't all that impressive. He beat Donnie Pendleton in Indianapolis, where some of us are fairly close to on the Cage Rage podcast crew, but he beat Donnie Pendleton in Indianapolis. But Donnie was 13, 138, and 4. So, the competition here is not that great. He's only 5 fights against opponents that had won their last fight. So, in other words, out of these 26 fights that he's fought in his career, only 5 of those opponents had won their last fight. So not only were his opponents never undefeated, he's never fought an undefeated opponent that I know of. He's also basically fought a lot of people that were coming off of a loss. So not all impressed with that 25-1 record, 12 knockouts, and his layoff time. So Jermaine Franklin, 17-0 with 13 KOs, looking pretty good on that. I'm going to give Booker the benefit of the doubt that he doesn't get knocked out, although with such a long layoff and his age, it's possible. Franklin, by decision, is my official prediction. No bets on this one that I can recommend.
Well, Franklin, we just don't know enough about either guy, obviously, but Franklin at 25 years old with 17-0 record, 13 knockouts to his name. He would be the one that you would have to label as having a little bit more of a ceiling, having more potential. Rydell Booker, after his comeback and after that long layoff, it becomes a situation where he's got to pull the trigger now. This might be his big fight, where if he doesn't make it through here, then his level's established. If he does, he'll be looking at being here on the Premier Boxing Champions roster. He'll be looking at a little bit bigger fight as they fill out their heavyweight roster. I think that's what we're seeing here is the American heavyweight roster is kind of light, so they're reaching and filling in some of these spots with guys that are ready, for a new level of spotlight. There's been a lot of regional action, but no real contenders or up-and-comers that are, rumored to be out there on the American heavyweight scene. So I think that's what you're seeing the PBC try to shake out here.
Absolutely. Should be a great weekend of fights, though. Some of them a little lopsided, but they're superstars that you got to see. Your Claressa Shields, you got to see my man Lomachenko. There's some fights not to be missed this weekend. I hope everybody enjoys them and maybe picks up a little bit of money on some of these dog watches and other picks that we've got. But thanks everybody for tuning in. And Miguel, it's always a pleasure, my man.
And thank you very much, ASP. And once again, we've been reviewing the odds for this Saturday Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Christina Hammer and Claressa Shields unifying middleweight titles among the ladies. We will have one unified champion at 160 pounds there after that fight's done. Many are calling it the biggest fight in women's boxing history. And I suggest everybody support the sport, support the ladies. I assure you they're going to give you a major fight. I've been joined by ASP, Anthony Scott Pyatt, to make picks for this weekend. Check this and our other wage rages out there.